Welcome to Dayton Warcry Club. I'm Warren, and today I'm joined by my co-host Fred. Today we'll get back to some lists and some event coverage from not one, not two, but 3 local events we've been able to participate in. That's 3 weeks in a row of Warcry events. We'll also have our usual hobby update and plug for upcoming events as well. Hey, evening Fred, how you been?
Hey, so far so good.
It's been a busy few weeks. As we're recording this is the weekend after Thanksgiving, so we survived the holidays.
Yes, and a lot of Warcry.
Yeah, 3 Warcry events this month, and we're actually got one coming up next weekend too. We'll talk about a little bit more about that later though. But we'll be averaging probably about 2 a month or so if I had my way.
Yeah, I think we can make that work.
So I also have a hobby update, mostly my picks, but I'm proud of it because I actually got a fair amount of hobbying done during this time too. And then we'll talk about the organized play event we had at Epic Loot that you were there at.
Yep.
We'll talk about the Columbus narrative tourney that I went to that our friend Jolly ran. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the meetup we had at Mavericks. We met a couple new players there, and we learned some stuff there too. So there'll be a new place we'll put in the rotation for Dayton Warcry Club events. So when was this? This was, I think, the week or two before we started doing all these events. This was our hobby hangout that we had at Zach's that no one else made it for. So it was just me and Zach in his basement, and I sat there building miniatures for about 8 hours.
Again, I see.
Yeah, I brought a lot of stuff. I got maybe through probably a quarter of everything that was in that tote in terms of kit bashing. You got a Blackstone Fortress box there, almost a full kill team box. So just some of the highlights. I built some terrain, built the Bladeborn miniatures, including the one, the only Darkragon, my Dark Oath War Queen, and then kit bashed some Stormcast Paladins in my own with my own special way.
Yeah, your helmet swaps, which I like.
Yep.
They look good.
And there's more where those came from too. So spent Thanksgiving weekend putting more stuff together, a little more kit bashing, an extra Bloodstoker. I got some what are the flying dudes? Judicators, prosecutors.
Prosecutors, yep.
Yep, got some prosecutors done with the helmets too. Got some 40K weapons attached to them, some storm shields, a Vargulf Courtier. We'll talk a little bit about the Vargulf Courtier and how he performed. And I got some painting finished too. Got some Skaven done finally because I had to get them done for that event. And a Horan Arc Regents and an extra Deathmaster. So 2 of those guys are from the Spikeclaw Swarm, but I used them as a Deathmaster and a Storm Vermin for the event I was in. And we'll talk a little bit more about my Skaven list as we go on too. But wait, there's more. So today is December 3rd as we're recording this, and this is the release date for Sundered Fates.
Hey.
So I have a lot of plastic sitting at home. And in my infinite wisdom, I also decided that the terrain for Sundered Fate was too sparse, and so I wanted to get a Heart of Gur set. Actually, I don't have pictures of the cards, but there are cards in the Sundered Fate. 6 of the cards have combined terrain sets, like a really awesome looking dense terrain. So with 4 trees and multiple walkways and stuff like that. And that's what I want to do for my Gur jungle board.
Nice.
So I needed the Heart of Gur set for that. Got a good deal on that. The Rotmire Creed will be going to you.
Yes.
I'll need to
somehow get my hands on more bloated ones or convert some. I think maybe I can dig around in my Nurgle Mortals for the shirtless guys and convert them.
You can do some converting there. There's another trick too. I think the guy that does off meta musings, he did a complete guide on playing Nurgle Rotbringers, or I'm sorry, a complete guide on doing Rotmire Creed. I think he also talks a little bit about conversions as well.
You have to
And
check that out because bloated ones are my main draw to the faction, and you get like one per box.
yeah, you can take another medium guy, and then you take some little bamboo pieces off another guy, and then you can get them close enough to looking like a bloated one. Because yeah, he is the MVP of the team, I think.
Yeah, they're nuts. Speaking of nuts, the Jade Obelisk guys, those guys are crazy good too. So that'll be interesting to tinker with a little bit.
Yeah, I dropped off the Jade Obelisk guys to Zach, and Zach hadn't seen the stats. Hadn't been paying attention, and he's going through it, and he's like, "Wow." But
Yes.
the most expensive guy here is 110, and they're all like solid. It is a pretty interesting warband. Seems pretty pushed in a lot of ways. Now,
Yeah.
not just the move 3 guys.
Yeah, no, the guy that does there's one guy that's outrageously efficient. I can't remember which one it is. But they have
Yeah, it's
one of the
the
better
Desecrator.
fighters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Desecrators with the hammers. Yeah,
yeah,
100 points, 3-5, 3-5.
yeah, outrageously good. Um,
The leader's not bad. The
yeah,
leader, she's 20 wounds for 110.
yep. So good stuff. It'll be fun to play around with.
Yep. Joel has the lizard spoken for, but and so yeah, I got more to build plus 2 boxes of this with all the terrain, and all I can say is that I'm in danger.
Yeah, it's gonna be good luck.
But I'm getting momentum done. I'm getting all the stuff built. If I get all the stuff off the sprues, that's one thing done, and then we wait for a nice day. Go to Zach's garage, prime all the stuff in Zach's garage, or at least until we can't breathe anymore. Yeah, it should be a good time.
Yeah, I actually got some painting done today. I am kind of high on ogres, which I had kind of backburner because I played them so much in 1.0, but I'm kind of high on them in 2.0, and so I actually got to work on some of the pirate ogres. So for the next episode we do, I'll actually have some updates of the pirate ogre squad.
Sweet. Yeah, and we were talking, just in the group chat about it, and I think it's hard to build a bad ogre warband.
Yeah.
Just your combination of 3, maybe even 4 big guys, a bunch of Noblars, and I think you're pretty strong.
Yeah, Noblars are so cheap that you can field the 3 best fighters on the board and still have 8 models very easily. So it's I think it's worth tinkering with. And on the Maw Path got buffed, which was a big gain for them because that was kind of the drawback before, is they were a little on the slow side, but now they're move 7 on demand. So yeah, I'll have a lot more about that next episode, I think.
Yep. And as you can see, as you can see from my picks, right, the next things I'm doing are updates to. So I finished Skaven, or I have Skaven to where I want in 2.0, at least for now, before I expand it again. Flesh Eater Courts, got that Vargulf Courtier, and I'll be expanding that out. And then the Stormcast will be next on the list. Probably either Stormcast and or Iron Jaws. We'll talk a little bit about Iron Jaws here too.
Yep. Sounds good.
So November 13th, we had a organized play event. So just 6 players. We had a couple new players show up. We ran these 3 missions. We ran Hidden Vault, Treasure Hunters, and Reaper. So an objective mission, a treasure mission, and a killing mission. And so we actually had a few new players. All of them had kill team experience, and they all did pretty well for themselves, not having a lot of Warcry experience. You lent your Flesh Eater Courts to somebody, and he actually had some very close games.
I like that list a lot. I think it's good.
Yep. But and then you got your Terrorgeist there looking great. But who won it all? Well, it was you.
Yes, it certainly was.
So your list was Terrorgeist, Necromancer, Cryptghast Ally, 3 Graveguard with Great White Blade, 1 Graveguard with White Blade and Shield, and then 3 Skeletons with Spears. 995 points, 10 models. Tell us about your list.
I think the list is really, really good. I think this or something like it, and there are changes I would definitely make to it. If I was preparing for an event that allowed monsters. The next event that I'm preparing for is the store championship, the Dayton Warcry Club store championship, which is a monster free meta. So I haven't taken another real firm pass over this list, but just off the top of my head, I think this list or something very close to it is one of the better lists you could play competitively. I think the Terrorgeist is good. It's not as good as the Chimera. And obviously for like 15 points more, the Chimera is going to give you a better model.
Right.
But what the Chimera does not have is Soulblight Gravelords as its backup.
Right. The supporting cast.
Yes. This, you get to play a monster and still have 10 models and have your chaff units be scary. Like, you get to play 10 models, but you still play 4 Graveguard. And you could tweak around this a little bit. For the main takeaway I had from the event is I never used the Cryptghast. He was there to move the Graveguard around with his triple. But
you want to Dragon Maul every turn, so
yeah, you want to Dragon Maul every turn, so you're really thirsty for triples. You never have 2, and if you only have 1 and your monster's still alive, you need to Dragon Maul. And 2, if you're dragging and mauling, I did this a lot. You take the enemy, the model you want to kill, and you drag it into your Graveguard ball. So you don't need to move the Graveguard faster. They just need to be close to the Terrorgeist, and the Terrorgeist will pull targets to them, and then like you just get like a million Graveguard attacks.
Yeah, didn't you kill a Mega Boss that way or something like that?
Yes, the Mega Boss died in the first round. He got Dragon Mauled, attacked once by the Terrorgeist, and then attacked by 3 Graveguard, and he died. And I was like, oh, there's something to this strategy. So the Cryptghast was just a 105 point bad fighter all day. So you could definitely repurpose those points into another Graveguard and another Skeleton and immediately make the list better, I think. You go up to 11 models and you have to get another Graveguard. But the core of the list is you out-activate your opponents and you have a monster. So you really get to pick and choose when your monster acts, because you can force their leader to act or their support model or whatever by burning activations. And once it's activated and it gets Dragon Mauled, it's over. You know, if you can Dragon Maul a model that's already activated that round, you're going to kill it, generally speaking. So I really like the concept of out activating your opponent while bringing a really scary monster, and I think Soulblight Gravelords is probably the best way to do that. The other ones you can do are like Nurgle demons with a Chimera, but like there's a big difference between a Plague Bearer and a Graveguard, right? Like the Plague Bearers are good for activations and they can soak wounds, but they don't get to murder ball effectively. Like 3 Graveguard together in a deployment group is actually like a really efficient and threatening deployment. And like a couple of Rotbringers together is like, yeah, if they get it on an objective, it's going to take a while to clear them, but you're not in any danger of them killing anything. So I think this is a really good mix of a lot of models with a monster while still playing really effective, efficient combat models. Cut the Cryptghast. You could do a lot of things. You could cut the Cryptghast and the Necromancer and bring in a Vampire Lord, and then fill in the points elsewhere. You could just bring in a Graveguard and a Skeleton. You could take a look at cutting the Necromancer and the Cryptghast and bringing in a Dreadblade Harrow. You have to get a leader in there.
Yeah, we talked about we've talked about White King since.
Yeah. That's definitely something I've looked at a lot. For 10 more points from a Necromancer, you actually get a unit that can fight, which is really good. And then you can bring in
being the second cheapest hero, but not as embarrassing in combat.
Yeah, then you cut the Cryptghast and bring in a Graveguard with Whiteblade and Shield and a Skeleton, and turn the Necromancer into a White King. And because I never used the Necromancer for anything except he was a cheap leader and he resurrected Graveguard when I needed him to later in the game, which a White King can also do, but also can fight with your Graveguard. So there's a lot of ways to build this list. Obviously, Soulblight Gravelord is absurdly deep. But I think building around Graveguard plus a Terrorgeist is where I would start if I was preparing for an open tournament.
Yeah, you can make the points work pretty much with all those cheap models, 40 points, 55 points, 65 points.
And then if
you can pick the hero of your choice and pretty much guarantee you're going to come in real close to 1,000.
Yeah, and then even when you're tinkering with points, Skeleton Champion is 70. So you have 55, you have 40, 55, 65, 70, all viable units to mix and match to make the points work. That's one of the big strengths of the faction is you can always get the points to work out.
And Sons of Elmorn.
Yeah, and Sons of Elmorn fill in there too, which this is pre-Sons of Elmorn, and I don't know off the top of my head if I would swap the Graveguard and Skeletons for a Sons of Elmorn package, but the upside to that is it does give you a good thing to do with your doubles, because you're feeding all your triples to the Terrorgeist, and it would give you the sibling rivalry is a pretty effective double to kind of feather in there a little bit. So
yeah, have Thane fourth and last go nuts with that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a million different ways to build this list. I'm not saying this is the best version of it, but I think the core concept here is maybe one of the best things you can be doing overall.
Yeah, I agree. So and you mentioned since so we had a winner with a monster this month. We had a winner with a monster last month, Chad with Nurgle Chimera. And based on some feedback from the players, plus my own observations, Dayton is going to be a monster-free zone now, probably. We might do monsters again, like by exception, maybe for certain one-off events. But in general, to make it more like newbie friendly, we're going to play some Good Honest Warcry from here on out. So I'm really interested to kind of see how those sessions turn out.
Yeah, I've been focusing on it a lot. And you really build completely differently. If there's not going to be any monsters there, the things you're focusing on are so much different. Like you don't need a monster/monster killer as the starting point of your list, which is where I think you have to start in 2.0 if monsters are going to be in the meta. Where you the first thing you need to do with the list is, okay, how do I handle a Chimera?
Right. It's kind of like what Salty was talking about in his monster video, where it really skews the meta back to where the playable units back to where it was in 1.0, where you have monsters, you have big guys that can stand up to and fight monsters, and you have chaff, and then you have that mid-range trap. All those 150 point fighters
get real bad when they can just get dragon mauled.
Yeah, when they get one shot by monsters and can't effectively do anything. Yeah, it becomes actually worse than it was in 1.0 in terms of like unplayable models, and that's not where I think Warcry needs to be.
I don't mind it as much, but I will say that it definitely is very different when you sit down to build lists, because the first thing you have to do is you start with, I'm playing this faction because it's good against monsters for this reason. And if you're not starting there, you're going to lose to monsters. If you're not building around the concept of like, this list is designed to beat monsters in this way, it's that old adage: you never play something that's a worse version of something else. So in 2.0 with monsters in the meta, like if you can't say my list is best at fighting monsters from this angle, it's probably a suboptimal competitive list. That's just the fact. Monsters are just that good. But yeah, beat a Chimera with this list by out activating it. And
so Dave's not on. He might be on a little bit later at the tail end of this, but we have his list. We'll talk about his list there and how that game went.
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, play Soulblight Gravelords right now with monsters, without monsters. They're really, really good.
Yeah, very strong. So second place, we had newcomer David with Iron Jaws.
This is the person I played in the first round.
Yep. David's list was Mega Boss, 3 Brutes with Gore Choppa. That's the 175 point model. 3/5, 3/6 stat line. And then
2-inch range also.
Yep, 2-inch range as well, correct. And then 3 Ard boys with Choppa and Shield. So not the heavy hitters. 3 attacks, strength 4, 1/4, but toughness 5, 15 wounds, 80 points. Real simple. Those brutes hit real hard, and he had 3 of them.
Yeah.
The mega boss is scary as well. 7 models, which is just about fine for just fine for Iron Jaws. About usually where those lists sort of end up.
Here's what I was impressed about with this list, and this actually got me really thinking about ogres afterwards. Was charge is really good. The army is slow.
Yep.
But a brute with a gore choppa or a mega boss, when it gets where it's going, they can outfight almost anything that they're running into. So having a decent movement ability like charge is pretty good at. Now our mission was not a treasure mission or anything where they would have to chase anybody. It was a get on top of the objectives and fight on the objectives mission. But
Yep.
charge was really effective at getting those guys there early, and then they just have to stand there and fight. So I was impressed. They were a little more mobile than I was expecting, and really the game came down to I had to keep a brute away from the final objective.
Right, so messing.
Yeah, and I managed to do that with the enormous base of the Terrorgeist and Dragon Maul strategic kind of stuff, and then building like a screen of skeletons so you couldn't get through without disengaging. I was impressed with the list. It was better than I thought it was going to be. On paper, I wasn't super impressed with, it's 7 models and the Ard boys don't do much damage.
I felt like I needed a Gore Grunta in there. All the lists I've been drafting for Iron Jaws have had a Gore Grunta in there, but for being all foot orcs, he did very well.
Brutes are good. Is my takeaway, I guess. Brutes are really good. You field a couple of those, filling around the edges, and it's competitive. Absolutely.
Yep. Choppa with Shield is an interesting choice. Usually, my favorite loadout is the 2-handed weapon, but
yes.
I'll be looking at Choppas and Shields too. Maybe because if you want them to just 80 wounds, toughness 5, if you want them to sit around on an objective, then that's where it serves a different purpose.
Yeah, I agree. At 80 points with that stat line, they're not really out fighting things, but they can certainly out tank things. I still think they're a little expensive for the stat line. Ard boys, they're not great, I think, but they are serviceable enough to support the brutes, which do a lot of work.
And then in third place, we had Chris. So Chris is David's father. In both Chris and Dave, they both play Kill Team, so they're coming from Kill Team. They both had 1 game of Warcry under their belt, and did really well. I actually work with Chris. He teaches at the same place I do, so he's a pretty smart guy. We've chatted, we've talked a lot about stats and metrics, and he thinks the same way I think about a lot of things. So he's attracted to Soulblight Gravelords in part because the faction is strong, very competitive, and then also very, very wide. You have, he can go a million different directions with the faction. And so what he is using he used a Vampire Lord as a leader, also using a Cryptghast ally. He's using a Seneschal, the 100-point skeleton, 3 Graveguard with Great White Blade. He has 2 Dire Wolves as thralls, and he's heavier on the skeletons. He has 5 skeletons with spears. Now, the Seneschal, he's in there because I had chatted with him about some older lists, and back when the Seneschal was, were really, still had the minion rude mark and was like 120 points or so in 1.0, you got all that value from resing a Seneschal. He wanted to have that trick in there. In retrospect, I think actually the difference between a Seneschal and a Graveguard is probably a lot less now. I mean, it has more wounds, but it's the same profile, the 3-5-2-4 profile. So it's probably better off maybe being another Graveguard now. But I mean, it's a cool looking skeleton leader, a little bit different hat on him and stuff like that. 995 points, 13 models. So this is more of your swarmy Soulblight Graveyard list.
Yep, I played him in round 3. List seemed pretty good. My takeaways were I like the Vampire Lord. I've been building with the Vampire Lord. I like the Vampire Lord is relatively tanky. Move 5 flyer. They can get across the board and start resurrecting your Graveguard in another part of the board.
Yeah, he's good all around. And if you want to do the slingshot resurrect trick, like, fly 10 and then pop, just pop a graveyard guard up into combat with somebody out of nowhere, I think he's probably probably the cheapest vehicle for that.
Yeah, so I like the Vampire Lord. What ended up happening is that he ended up we were in round 3 and we had a lot of models apiece, and he ended up just leaving the Vampire Lord at the edge of Dragon Maul range, and the Vampire Lord got killed very, very quickly, and then he no longer had a res as an option, and I managed to grind through him.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I think the list is good. I think we talked about it, and I think he was also fairly unimpressed with his Cryptghast. This list could easily be 15 models if you cut the Cryptghast and the Seneschal and demoted them down to skeletons and graveguards. And I think it might actually even be A, killier, and B, you'd get more models out of it.
I saw the Direwolves in play versus Flesh Eater Courts on the treasure mission. And the Direwolves were really interesting because they're fast movers and without the Beast Rune mark, so they're actually able to pick up treasure.
Yeah. 85 points to me seems like kind of a lot for what you get, but it's hard to argue with the fact that they are 85 points, move 8 treasure carriers.
Yeah. You have points to spare because you're playing Soulblight Gravelords and everything else is so cheap.
Yeah. So, I thought they were good at doing that. I might not play 2, maybe, if I was building the list, but I think having 1 is really interesting as a fast option. And then, the rest of it is just like undercosted, good Soulblight Gravelord stuff.
Yep. Really interesting to see what changes he makes for the next time we meet up, without monsters, or, what he learned and where he wants to go with it.
If I was playing without monsters, I think my Soulblight Gravelord lists are ending up around 10 to 12 models because they're very Graveguard heavy. But I think that there's a lot you can do with that and put together a competitive list in a lot of ways.
If you don't have monsters, then do you think Cryptghast kind of goes back up in value with getting that mobility? Keep in mind also, this was before the FAQ came out as well. So we were running Cryptghast. Rules is written that triple was the full value of the triple. Since then it was FAQ'd and only works for half the value of the triple now.
This is true. I think that if you want that effect, it's no longer good enough to have a unit that is just a point sink into that ability, because the Cryptghast is not a great model at 105 points outside of that ability. I think you make room if you want that effect, you make room for the Vargolf.
Vargolf, Ghoul King, Archregent, something that can fight. That can fight.
You make room for a decent fighter that can use that when it needs to, and not make that a core part of your strategy. And I think you end up with better allocation of points. So I guess, long story short, I don't think that ability is worth bringing just for that ability anymore, but I think there's models with that ability that are good enough that I'd bring them for the model and have the ability is kind of where I'm at.
Yep. So also honorable mention. So our good friend Dave with Slaves to Darkness, he went big. He kept on going bigger and bigger here. So he brought a 5 model list: Chimera, Dark Oath War Queen, Ogroid Myrmidon, his probably his favorite ally, a Chaos Warrior with Sword and Shield at 110, and a Marauder with Flail. 1,000 points, 5 models. What do you think about this list? He's not here to defend himself. He might get his say later on, but what do you think about this?
Obviously the Chimera is doing most of your heavy lifting in this list. The Ogroid Myrmidon is fine. It's a good fighter, but if the Chimera dies in this list, you don't have a great backup plan. Your Chaos Warrior and your Marauder aren't like going out and like winning one-on-one fights all over the board.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a very low model count list with the Chimera as a focus do very well at Warhammer World.
Yep.
So there's obviously something there to the list.
Yep. So this kind of gets into the whole theory of, so remember our initial theory when building Chimera lists was you want to surround the Chimera with as many bodies as possible. You want to try to, if possible, exhaust all of the opponent's activations and then let the Chimera just go crazy, like maybe get 2 or 3 turns in a row.
Yeah.
What we've seen since then from Chimera lists are, a Chimera, with like maybe 6 other models, not quite going as high on the model count as we first thought.
Yeah.
Dave took it down even further, but then he went up against you. And so you had how many models in your list? 10 models, 11 models with your Terror guys?
10. So what ended up happening, and I think this isn't just a fluke or like I outplayed David or anything there, just the way it works on a Warcry board, when you can force the Chimera to move first and you still have 5+ activations left and you can double bracket it or bracket it with impunity, it gets a lot worse. I think if your opponent doesn't have a monster, you can play a Chimera plus 4 or 5 models and not necessarily worry about it as much. If your opponent has a monster and is out activating you, it's much harder to make your monster effective. It was my big takeaway from this event. The Chimera is vulnerable once it activates because it can't move and attack, obviously. So it'll like move and Dragon Maul one of your models, and then you can just pour a lot of fire into it when you have 5-6 activations left over. And once you start attacking monsters, they die or bracket into irrelevancy a lot quicker than it might look like on paper. It has been my experience. Like if you focus them down, you can kill monsters.
The one time I was successful dealing with that Chimera, I managed to bracket it once, bracket it twice, and it still took out 2 Korgoraths.
Sure,
but
still a very reasonable model, double bracketed, but not 390 points.
Right.
So I think this strategy can be effective. I think the counterplay to it is monster with more models. And I think that monster with more models is very hard for this kind of list to play around. Just mathematically, it's just the way that the activations work out. It's hard for them to get to find that angle, to find that weak point, to get ahead on start killing models and even out that activation disparity. It is difficult for this to do. Just you run out of activations.
Yep. And then also to out of the prize, but still good showing. We think this is a solid list, and this is something I'm building towards as well. So Justin played your Flesh Eater Courts. So he had a Horned Archregent, Vargolf Courtier, allied in a Dreadblade Harrow, and we've had other models in that slot, but we had the Nighthaunt Dreadblade Harrow, and we had 5 ghouls. The way this shook out to be 100,000 points even, 8 models. And from the games I saw, the Vargolf Courtier was very strong, dominating the battlefield with its triple. When it pops its triple, it goes up to a straight 6 attacks, 5 strength, 3/5, which is really scary. Can get to where it needs to go. Archregent isn't bad. Harrow has some tricks to it as well.
Yeah. So I think this list is probably pretty good. I don't know that it's better than cutting the Archregent and the ghouls and just slotting in Soulblight Gravelord models. You know what I mean? Like you cut the abhorrent Archregent for a Necromancer and a Graveguard, and then you just take as many Graveguards as you can fit in the ghoul slot, and the list might just be better. Just because Soulblight Gravelord is so good. But the Vargolf Courtier, it really has impressed me consistently across the board. The thing that's cool about its triple, Terrifying Frenzy, is you can pretty reasonably, if you have good triple, move him and then pop the triple and attack, and you basically get the equivalent of an extra action out of it, right? Because if you get 3 extra attacks, he has 3 base attacks. So you can kind of move double attack, equivalent.
It's pretty much what it comes down to. Yep.
Yeah, which is very cool. Plus, it has 35 wounds. And it has the FEC movement ability if you do need to get models moved across the board. This list doesn't have that problem because the Aphoric Arc region is fast, the Courtier is fast, and the Dreadblade Harrow is like the fastest unit in the game, right? It moves 10, it can teleport. But, it's always there for the utility. I think the list is probably pretty solid. I think the big takeaway is the Volgraf Courtier is expensive, but it's very effective.
Yeah, I think I saw the Dreadblade Hero actually res the Vargolf Courtier once.
Yes,
very cool. That. You have that trick, and we've looked at other models in that slot as well. The original build for this had I believe, a Crypt Haunter in there at the same price. So, and the idea for that was, it's a combo. Chosen of the King. If he happens to get in a fight nearby the Archregent, you can buff him. You could also have that be a Crypt Flare as a flyer. But at the same price, I think we're kind of deciding now that Dreadblade Harrow at 235 is the superior flyer to the FEC Crypt Flare.
Yeah, the Crypt Flare
has a couple more hit points, but it has like almost the same profile. I think it's the exact same attack profile, but just like the utility from the Harrow that it gives you.
Yeah, Crypt Flares have gotten to the point where I'm never super impressed with the amount of damage you get out of them for their point cost. So yeah, I think the Dreadblade Harrow works pretty well in that slot because it gives you a whole different angle that you did not have before, which teleport across the board, resurrect something, which is cool and powerful. And I'd rather have that than just a relatively lackluster attack profile on a fast model. So point for point, I think the Dreadblade Harrow is pretty good.
Yeah, so that was that tournament. And then the following week, so I went by myself to Columbus, went to go represent Dayton. Jolly ran a narrative tournament. So this was kind of like the Fel Nyroth tournament where there were just you racked up points towards the overall winner as you went through the rounds, but you also gained some power and some artifacts and stuff for your warband as you went on. So you could rounds 1 through 3, there was minor artifacts available on the board that you could pick up like treasure, and so I was running around stealing those. You also got a set 1 renown per round that you could assign to a guy, so you could give some additional rerolls or free reactions. I don't think I quite did that. I don't think I quite understood that system as well as I could have. I would have done something a little bit different with the way I built my heroes. But there were like all thematic missions kind of designed by Jolly here. And I took it down. Went 4-0 with my double pack master special. I've talked about it here before. It was good to kind of see it in action and see, all right, put my money where my mouth is. Say, hey, I think Skavener's still good. I think this list is good. And I managed to prove it. It wasn't easy. I'll talk about some of my games. I had to fight from behind in a couple of my games. It's nowhere near as face rolly as having 10 models on the board and being able to out activate people and stuff like that. But I had my typical master molder, 2 rat ogres, 2 pack masters. The pack master rat ogre combo is one of the strongest ones in the game, one of the strongest ones in the faction. And I like having the additional redundancy and having the multiple pack masters and the master molder. And so I got rid of the giant rats and the plague monks. They're a little bit too expensive for me now. And I was testing with a death master, trying to see how it played, trying to get used to how it can best be used. And then we rounded it out with a storm vermin with halberd at 95 points, toughness 4, 10 wounds. He doesn't fall over dead like all the other Skaven do. He can at least maybe take a second punch. He has a reasonable attack profile, and it comes out to 995 points, but only 7 models. And so I was actually outnumbered in most of my games, and that was very unusual to me.
Yeah, I mean you're playing 2 rat ogres. It's a price you pay, even though they are still.
And everything else is. Nothing else is cheap either because everything else has move 6 or move 7. So you're paying for that movement. There's no cheap fighters in Skaven anymore, and even the cheapest ones are not that good. Pack Masters at 70, because they have that ability still, those are acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, Rat Ogres get in there and they do a lot of work.
Yeah, they still have that insane attack profile.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the list is very good.
So second place was Sam with Stormcast Eternal Warriors. So Sam's a very tight player as well. He's another kill team guy. And when I saw his list and I saw what he had, so he actually had Custodes. He'd kit bash, or essentially he just was using mostly Custodes as Stormcast, which worked pretty well. He had a little bit of everything here. So he had his leader was the Knight Vexillor. The Knight Vexillor has an ability, it's a movement ability. He had a Prosecutor with Hammer and Shield. So that's the 200-point Prosecutor. Reasonable attack profile, toughness 6. Had Adjudicator with Boltstorm Crossbow. A fairly decent shooter, a 4-4-2-4 shooter. He had a Protector, the range 3, move 3 guy that hits like a truck. He had a Liberator with Grandblade. Had not seen that profile before, but it's a very scary fighter. I
think the Liberator with Grandblade is a really good model. I haven't gotten to play with it, but it's on my very short list of stuff I'd like to play with.
After seeing it, I agree. Yeah, move 4, 4 attack, strength 4, 3-5, and rounding out with a Liberator with Sword and Shield. 1,000 points, 6 models. So I played him. Rat Ogres, and the lowest toughness is 5. This is where Salty was asking us before, like, no one plays Stormcast in your area, and we're like, no one plays Stormcast in our area. Well, I got the Stormcast experience.
Yep.
Rat Ogres hitting on 5s, and it was a lot slower grinding through 20 wound models with toughness 5.
Yeah, I believe that. It requires it makes you value some different things. Your Graveguard aren't quite as killy, when you're attacking toughness 6, that kind of stuff. But it's an interesting list.
Yeah, a ton of variety, and but all of them solid models. Like, there aren't any models there that I wouldn't, that I don't think are embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the models are good. It's a little model light and a little slow, and that's just the Stormcast experience. But certainly pound for pound, you're going to win a lot of fights.
Yep. And then third place, we had Lindsay with Nurgle Mortals. I played Lindsay in round 1. So yeah, just Nurgle Mortals, 8-foot models. Just
all Blight Kings.
Yep, all Blight Kings, all move 3. I noticed they all had toughness 4. They have across the board, they have a lot of wounds, but they actually don't have a really high toughness.
Yeah, so, they are they're HP tanks, they have a lot of wounds.
Yep. So the Rat Ogres, so in this case, the Rat Ogres actually performed a little bit better against them, and then also the movement wound up kind of being a liability as well.
Yeah, they're slow. They're still not quite there, I don't think, in terms of just raw competitive. They're a lot better than they used to be.
Yep. But the list was well painted, and this was actually the winner for the best painted or the best warband in terms of theme, because there was a voting session for that, and I think it was a well deserved award.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the missions here. So the job was a kill mission where both sides had to pick 2 models, and those 2 models were going to be goons. And if a goon, and so at the end of it, at the beginning of turn 1, you pick your two of your models on the table, and they're your goons. If your goon killed a non-goon model, you earned a victory point. If you killed an opponent's goon, you earned 2 victory points. And those are the only way to earn victory points. So my 2 Rat Ogres were goons, and I wanted to get them into combat, smash some stuff real quick, and also, if possible, smash the opponent's goons, because A, you get the 2 points, and then B, you slow their point scoring down. So it went to plan. I managed to kill an opponent's goon very quickly. I can't remember if I lost one of my goons or not. I think I eventually did, but it wasn't early on. But I had that early points lead. And since this is versus Nurgle Mortals, my move 6 across the board, move 5 and move 6, meant that I was able to decide exactly where I wanted to engage. Like, she would have a critical mass of models in like one corner of the board that came in, and I would just be like, nope, I'm not fighting there. And like, I would just run across the board, like double move, 12 inches away. And a number of fighters just never had any sort of effect on the battle. And so that was what I was doing actually in a lot of games, was actually because I didn't have a rat, not count besides the rat overs, most of my guys will not win in a straight up fight. I spent a lot of time just running away from people. So
Yeah,
that was really interesting. You try to protect the models, especially because if there's objective missions or something like that, you need to keep models alive for objective missions.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
The second round was jailbreak, and so we both teams had a prisoner. You got points for rescuing your prisoner. One of your guys that was a prisoner. You got points for preventing them from rescuing yours. But the way the board was set up, I think it would have been hard to prevent it in either event. And so the final point was whoever killed more points worth of models. And so we eventually both rescued our prisoners. And so in this one, it came down to who had killed more points worth of stuff at the end. And in this one, I can't remember his name, but he was playing Splintered Fang, those poison dudes. And he played very aggressively. He was like running his guys straight up into the rat ogres. And he was getting damage on the rat ogres, but then the rat ogres are hitting back and like one-shotting his venom bloods and stuff like that. And so I don't think those are really great trades for him. But I'll take them. The one thing that he did have, probably one of his most effective units, was I think they're Venom Bloods with spears, because they have that range 2. They have good damage with a 2/4 damage profile, and he made use of that double. The generic double for Splintered Fang says that you wound on 3s. So it doesn't matter what your strength is. If you activate Poison Weapon, you hit on 3s. So that takes, even though you have strength 3, if you could fight rat ogres, and instead of hitting on 5s, now you're hitting on 3s. You could use that versus Stormcast with good effect as well. And I thought that was actually a really strong double, actually.
Seems like it.
He managed to put some serious hurt on the rat ogres, and once we got towards the end of the game, I didn't do all the math on, like, I was pretty sure I was ahead, but I didn't do all the math. But I managed to run some guys away, protect them long enough, and sure enough, I was ahead on points at the end of round 4 and won that one. The next round was the resources, and so this is where I played Sam on Stormcast. So this was a tough one. The way this mission was set up, in round 1, there's 2 objectives, and this is one of the ones where you score points as you go throughout the game. So you can rack up a lot of points early, and then in round 3, another objective shows up for the final turns of the game as well, and that one was worth like 2 points apiece if you controlled that objective, had more models on it. So I have to play very, very defensively throughout this, because you want to keep guys as alive for as long as possible to score points as long as possible. I'm able to use my movement to kind of like sneak objectives a little bit, and once he's committed to one in place, I can sneak in and jump on an objective. I love playing that sort of game with Skaven. We realized, actually, Sam realized first that you could actually place, because those objectives are diagonal, you had a very small space where you could actually put someone right diagonally between them and actually have them count towards both objectives. So he would straddle the objectives, and then I realized that, and so I copied his tactic and I started straddling objectives as well. He drove, and it was very, very close. The game could have gone probably either way until, and so the end of round 3, he had a protector kind of in the middle, a fresh protector, and we know the protector is a really dangerous piece with a huge threat radius. And I'm cracking whips on rat ogres, chipping away at them, but I'm usually getting 4 points, maybe 8 points of damage on an attack, slowly wearing them down. And against this fresh protector, I do a rat ogre attack, and I get 5, 6, 6 crit hit 20. And that's, you roll enough dice, you're going to spike a die roll. And I think that swung it for me there.
Yeah, and that's sort of the downside to paying points for toughness, right? Is that like sometimes you just get crit to death and you're just like, well, that sucks. But that's the name of the game. Warcry is a crit based game, and sometimes you're going to get crit to death.
Yeah. So he was down a model there and down a lot of killing power by that point. And so I managed to pull that one up. But again, it's super, super tight game. Really well played by Sam. Look forward to next time I go up to Columbus. I gave him all the Discord info. I think he's interested in coming down here, either getting with our Kill Team community down here in Dayton, or potentially playing Warcry here too. So he's a force to be reckoned with. Definitely one of the best players in the room. And so at this point, I'm 3-0. I pretty much have it locked up. I still got to play the 4th round. It's possible I'll lose on tie breaks or victory points if I don't win this one. So this is the showdown. And so this one now, storyline wise, you pick one of your characters that has renown, and they become an avatar, and they gain additional abilities. You get an ability that lets you, if you're running through somebody, you can pull someone with you. You get a push ability, like an AoE push ability, to just blast everyone within 1 inch. You just blast them out 2 inches. And you had these raised pillars there that you had to be wholly within to score points. Your avatar was worth 2 models on it. And after round 3, anything outside on the ground was sudden death to force a big fight in the middle. And it was an area like just a big kind of team fight area objective control thing. And I played against Iron Golems, actually. Mario with Iron Golems. And so he had, Dominar, he had a leader, he had triple Drill Master. I think he had 2 Armators and 2 other guys. So, 8 models. The Drill Masters are still very dangerous with the quad. They have that AoE. It used to be a triple, but that AoE on a quad is dangerous. And he actually, Mario played very well. He killed both my Packmasters early. He recognized that the Packmasters are the engine that runs my warband.
Yeah, I always kill Packmasters first.
Yep. Plus also they're a weak point for if you're counting on points for these area control objective missions as well. So I was hurting there, and then also my Death Master I had appointed to become my avatar. And actually my Death Master hadn't really been doing a whole lot throughout this tournament, and never really had opportunities to kill something bigger than him. I sort of realized, and we'll talk a little bit more from the follow-up event, that the Death Master, you don't want to throw a Death Master in versus something that's way bigger than him. I don't think I ever used Running Death once, or really had a good opportunity to use it. I mean, he would do some chip damage in. He could get to where he wanted to go very easily with a 14-inch double move, but I never really used him very effectively. And he got gibbed. He got gibbed by the opponent fairly early on in this game. So now I'm really fighting from behind because I got 4 models left. I'm missing my Death Master, a significant piece. And my Death Master has all of these special abilities that these area control abilities that let you do this Fusroda AoE push out of the circle, while his leader still has it and can really mess me up. So this actually wound up being a really, really tight game because of that. kind of fight, was kind of like fighting from behind the whole time. But the two rat ogres, they lived throughout the whole thing, and eventually, I think it wound up being, I would do something like run over I would like rampage, run over with a rat ogre or something like that, smash a guy, and then run back, doing stuff like that with my moves. And so managed to come out ahead on that one there too. But really interesting mission. It was a lot going on with this one because you had all these additional abilities on your guys. You're like, my Death Master, I wanted to save him for last in the turn because, if you have all those abilities, right, you want to let the turn play out and then use his abilities for maximum effect. But when he got gibbed, I was just like, oh, okay, this is bad. But great tournament. Those last two games, really intense games. Yeah, can't wait for Jolly to run another one.
Yeah, well, I had a good time at the Jolly Run event that I played at. So runs good events. Go to his events.
This gets us to after Thanksgiving. We had another meetup. So this was a real informal meetup at your local store, Mavericks.
Yep, Mason, Ohio. So this was fun. We just didn't play anything structured. We just played a bunch of games with everybody that was there. Had some good times. I played 3 games and I played 3 different war bands, just trying to get a feel for some stuff in 2.0 that I hadn't tested yet.
Yeah, we had James and JD that we met there.
Yep, Soulblight Gravelords.
And a couple of Tzeentch lists, yeah.
And Tzeentch Mortals and Tzeentch Demons. So a lot of variety. Very cool to play against a variety of players and warbands. I played Daughters of Cain, Beast of Chaos, and I don't remember what I played other than that. But
you played your Flesh Eater Courts, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, the Flesh Eater Courts list. Yeah. And we played a variety of mission types. My big takeaways were that Zangers are really good.
Yeah, movement 5, 15 wounds from Tzeentch Mortals. So I played against a Tzeentch Demons gun line, and so it did not have the pink horrors, but it had blue horrors. So the blue horrors have a range attack as well that actually sort of adds up. They caught one of my guys out in the open early on and murdered him. I was like, ooh, okay, I need to close with combat with these guys quick, and started using the friendly fire rule. And I think he came to a good conclusion. He came, I can't remember if it was James or JD. He had come to the conclusion that pink horrors weren't worth it because even though you get that value from split before doing split again, you pay so much for the pink horrors that you wind up with fewer activations, and you oftentimes don't have as many free guys available to actually do the reaction properly to get that split again, or to get the first split. He had I think 9 models on the table with the blue horrors, and it was very hard for me to try to target horrors that hadn't activated yet. So I'm just running in Rat Ogres, and I'm just like, well, I'm going to smash it. I know he's going to get a Brimstone out of it, but fine, I'm going to smash that one too. I just had to I just had to grind through all of those horrors. Yeah.
I played Daughters of Cain, who I really like on paper. I don't know if this is the list that I would play again. The Bloodrack Medusa is still really, really good. Sisters of Slaughter are still fine.
Yeah, Medusa. What else to go up with the Bloodrack?
The Gore Guy.
Okay, not the Iron Scale, but just the regular Gore Guy. Okay.
The Gore Guy is just the Blood Sister or whatever, the snake.
The smaller one. So two big Medusas and then a bunch of the sisters.
Bunch of Sisters of Slaughter, yeah. And it was fine. The Gore Guy is a little glassy and got caught out and killed too quick, which was a problem. Blood Rack is just insane. Really, really good model. It's hard to go completely wrong with that model as a centerpiece. Beast of Chaos, the Doom Bull was still insane.
You played me, and the Doom Bull was dominant on the board.
Killed 2 Rat Ogres. The big takeaway from that game that I had was the movement doubles were really, really good. And that's kind of what kind of clicked with thinking about the Iron Jaws charge and the on the Maw path, and has me sort of building in that direction for a little bit. I don't have any firm lists yet, but free actions are good in this game, and free actions on doubles are good. So
Yep.
so that gave me some things to think about there. Obviously, the best of gore was really bad. We knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah, your Beast of Chaos list was Doom Bull, Cockatrice, Bestigore, and then the rest were gores, I think, right?
No, there was also a not a blood kind, a bull gore.
That's right. Yep.
In there. Non-optimized list, mostly just an adapted 1.0 list. I still think Beast of Chaos they have a lot of good units, but I don't think that's the list I would necessarily run back. Did fine. Played against the Soulblight Gravelords list with a Vargskier that's in the picture here, and a bunch of skeletons. And,
yeah, some really cool looking warbands.
Yeah, good stuff.
Also seen as Untamed Beasts. I think this is my brother playing Untamed Beasts because he was in town. And we learned a little bit about Untamed Beasts even too. One box, one Untamed Beasts. And we actually kind of changed the deployment groups based on chatting afterwards, because we had been putting the first Fang together with the Heart Eater for that combo to do a pull, and then you have the leader smash a guy.
Yep.
But the Prey Takers hit really hard, but they're also super glassy, and so it makes sense actually. You put the first Fang with them instead, and now your goal is, the Heart Eater, he's fine by himself. He'll smash a bunch of stuff regardless.
Yeah.
He can go well by himself, but you want to combo the first Fang with the two Prey Takers, and you want to look for a vulnerable model, pull it in, and then you have the Prey Takers smash a guy, and then you don't care about how glassy they are because they're beating up on helpless targets that got pulled in.
Yes.
And I think that's a way better approach to take for Untamed Beasts.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I want to play around with the Great Bray Shaman for similar type stuff. I think, again, free actions are good in this game, and pulls, if a pull,
especially that pull,
rates a free action because you get to double attack rather than move and attack. It can potentially generate a lot of value.
Yeah, the friendly fire rule actually comes into play with the first Fang, which is actually kind of unfortunate.
Whew, a lot of events.
Yep, and we got more coming. As we record this next weekend, Sunday, we're back to Epic Loot in Centerville. Monsterless tourney practice. So we'll do match play missions. We'll do this one a little bit more informally. No medals on the line. Warband swapping allowed. I actually kind of want to do the store championship this month, but with the holidays, I'm not sure what sort of turnout I'm going to get. Plus, also, do want to give kind of people a fair shot at kind of like, okay, hey, let's get some reps in without monsters, so that people aren't going in completely cold, since we've had monsters for the first few events that we had. But hoping to get a number of people, hoping to get a good number of people out there for that, to get ready for the store championship. I got a copy of the flyer there. It's out on all the local Discords. And let's see. And I haven't set up another date for anything at Mavericks yet, but potentially maybe another Saturday at Mavericks potentially too.
Absolutely. Great store, great facilities there. So yeah, come out and test. If you haven't played in non-monster meta, it's worth getting the reps in. If you have played in non-monster meta, still worth getting the reps in. I'm sure we'll have a ton of different warbands to test with and against. And I think we'll continue to develop.
A lot more newbie friendly, and you just play some good, honest Warcry.
Absolutely, sounds good. Can't wait.
This brings us to a close for this episode of Dayton Warcry Club. We focused on local events this week, but next week we'll do the same thing for winning lists from the big Warcry tournament that was held at Warhammer World last weekend. In addition to our YouTube channel, you can also listen to this on your podcast platform of choice. I've included the RSS link here, but we should be indexed on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. But one of the best places to see some of the latest lists that we post and get help with your new lists is on the official Warcry Discord. The great community with link in the description. Until then, I'm War Machine.
I'm Fred Shred.
Thanks for listening.
Fix it in post.